Hi, welcome. I'm Kristen. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to start this pod and to talk to you, exchange ideas about astrology and pop culture, and figure out what the hell is going on. So, I wanted to start with a story that is top of mind, Scandoval. It's almost over, thank goodness. But last night we saw some real crazy shit on TV. It's so wild. I want to discuss all of that. But first, I really wanted to start from the beginning and understand why this scandal has affected this nation and beyond in such a way that we ended up at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And by we, I mean all of us. From the moment this scandal broke, I became completely obsessed, completely consumed, and really wanted to understand why this is collectively hitting so hard. I have so many theories. Of course, I think we've all experienced some degree of what we're seeing on television in real life at some point, but that happens often. So, there are definitely other reasons involved. I think, for 4 years, we were under the control of a narcissistic president, and I think that energy is still really triggering. We could talk about all the buzzwords, gaslighting, triggering, and all of that stuff, but we all know what this is doing to us. It is fucking us up. Let's look into ways we can explain this through the stars, through their birth charts, and figure out what was happening in the sky when this scandal broke. This scandal clearly had all the makings of an incredible story. There was betrayal, lies, deceit, questions of loyalty, had us digging back seasons looking for clues, like the Taylor Swift album of television with all of these Easter eggs. I loved it. I'm sad that it's over a little bit, but I'm also ready to move on. But before we do that, let's talk about the astrology. To begin, let's talk about what a natal chart is. Natal chart, birth chart, they're both interchangeable. What a natal chart is, it's a snapshot of the sky the moment that you were born. And it's unique to each person. Even twins can be slightly different. And a lot of times people will say, well, I'm a Scorpio and I'm nothing like this other Scorpio. And of course, these signs are super complex, but the charts are even more complex. We'll just look at how each respective cast member uses the energy that they're born with and figure out if it's for good or evil. So with that said, every sign has good and bad traits. I like to think of it as your superpower if harnessed properly, and your kryptonite if unharnessed. So if you think of your sign and you think of all of the good things that you read, you know that there's also a bad side. Very similar to that two wolves analogy. Essentially, the one that wins is the one that you feed. When in doubt, lean into the best of traits and try to harness from there. Okay, so both Ariana and Tom are Cancer's sons. That is Queen Ariana, piece of shit Tom. Cancer is a water sign. And if we're looking at the elements, each sign has an element, whether it's air, fire, water, earth. In this case, it's water. And when we think of water and all the qualities of it, it could be super nourishing. It could be an elixir for life, or it could wipe out an entire city. So when we're talking about harnessing energy, that's what I mean. Figuring out how to use that power that you're innately born with for good. And Cancer is a water sign ruled by the moon. So this means that their moods tend to change with the tides. Literally. They're super in tune, they're very sensitive, really able to absorb their surroundings, but they can get lost in those emotions and the ups and downs. In other words, they can be moody. Any sign can really be moody, but especially Cancer. They feel so deeply and they're so misunderstood by those that wouldn't necessarily get the depth that they're going to. Okay, so then your moon sign is your emotions. It's your inner world, the way you process and express your feelings. And this is where the difference lies between Tom and Ariana. Ariana is a Cancer sun, as we mentioned, and a Virgo moon. Virgo is an earth sign. Love my Virgos so much, but off the bat, we know they can be really obsessive at times. They're more prone to being a homebody, they're worker bees, grounded, and just as an archetype of their sign, they tend to be, quote, in service to others. So I've noticed that Virgos keep the show on the road, essentially, and they tend to act in ways that are beneficial for the greater good, whether they mean to or not. They seem to just have this innate ability to push a narrative forward. So Tom, as I mentioned, is also a Cancer sun. It's said that he may be lying about his age by 2 years. So we can never really tell what this shape-shifting weirdo is up to. But either way, whether or not he's lying about his age by 2 years, his moon sign would either be Gemini, which I feel strongly, or Aquarius. And in some expressions of Aquarius, they can mimic some of Gemini's airy untetheredness. They're essentially cousins in astrology. Let's say he's a Gemini moon. So Geminis are known as the eternal teenagers of the zodiac. They're social butterflies, they're flirtatious, they're rebellious, they can be scandalous, they have a little bit of like a criminal rub to them sometimes, and they're mercurial in their moods. Ruled by Mercury, they're all about communicating their ideas. And Tom's ideas are humiliating and they really suck. At their worst, Geminis, they need to grow up, and at their best, they're so fun. They're exciting. They have that like teenage vibe, this youthful exuberance. They're just fun. They're the twins, so it's often said you'll never know which twin you'll get. And Geminis can be super creative. They are the lyrical wordsmiths of the zodiac, but they can also be immature and rudderless in their execution. So if you think of Kanye, like what the hell is he doing right now? We don't know. But they're endlessly curious for the better or worse. They can get caught up in chasing the next shiny thing in their periphery. Schwartz says they can, quote, easily get lost in the sauce. That's what we're seeing play out in front of us. Now, if he was an Aquarius moon, he would still have those sort of offbeat qualities. It's still an air sign. I would be shocked. I truly believe that he is either Gemini rising or has super strong Gemini placements, just because we are seeing this play out in such an obvious way now. I love you, Geminis. We'll never really know because Scandoval's a liar. Raquel, I guess we'll call her Raquel if that's what she wants to be known as. She's a Virgo sun and a Sagittarius moon. Sagittarius is the sign opposite from Gemini in the zodiac wheel, meaning she and Sandoval are emotionally compatible. Sagittarius can be spontaneous, they can be really fiery, they're very lucky as well, they're adventurous, they love to travel, but they can also be really compulsive in their dealings, and they can be really impulsive as well. Raquel's Venus is, to preface, Venus is how and what you love, how you express that, it's your style, the way you design your home, all of those things. It's anything that has to do with love and beauty, really. Rachel's Venus is Scorpio in the 12th house, which is the house of secrets, karma, past lives, mental institutions, hospitals, all of these different things. Scorpio, as a Venus sign, is super intense. It's also secretive. It's a sign of sex, death, and rebirth. This makes her prone to clandestine love affairs that are transformative, they're passionate, they're secretive, but they can be really scandalous and done in the dark and leave a scorched earth if it goes wrong, which this one obviously went very wrong. She's also experiencing her Saturn return, and hers seems fucking horrible, so hopefully she grows in all the ways possible. We hope for the best, I guess. Let's talk about James, superstar James. He's an Aquarius, and as Allie's mentioned on the show, he has Venus, which is his expression of love, in Sagittarius in the first house, meaning he is very affectionate publicly, and he just has this lust for life. And this is where James and Raquel's connection makes a little bit of sense. So her moon, Sagittarius, emotions matching with his love language, Sagittarius, but for them it's not really sustainable long term for this reason and for others in the chart. But to get through it, Rachel keeps her sexual relationships behind closed bedroom doors, so we really don't know if she had been cheating on James for much longer. The other sort of strange thing is that James is also an intense, emotional, and loyal Scorpio moon, loyal to the people that matter, I believe. And this is another point of connection with who I also believe is his twin flame, Lala. So Lala is a Virgo sun, Aquarius moon, and Scorpio rising. And Virgos, love my Virgos, at their best, they can spot things a mile away. They're focused, they're detail-oriented, they're intuitive. They can be obsessive, as we mentioned, to an inexplicable degree. As a side note, Christina Kelly is also an evolved Virgo, and she clocked Rachel before anyone else on the cast did. She did not trust her. And I trust Christina. The way both Lala and Christina had been communicating in the last couple of episodes of this season was really straight to the point, it was effective, and it moved the story forward. I also see a really strong connection between James and Lala through the sign of Aquarius. So James is an Aquarius sun, and he sort of dances with her Aquarius moon. If you think of them as a duo, they're a little offbeat. They're two peas in a pod, really. I would say soulmates, whether romantically or not. They're almost futuristic in the way that they conduct themselves and live their lives. So they're essentially aliens on their own planets, and we love it. Something interesting about Aquarians is that they often fall for other Aquarians because they are just so odd sometimes. They get each other. Other times where signs are paired, it can really clash and be explosive, but Aquarians are that unique breed. Her Scorpio rising is something that I think we saw quite a bit of this season. It makes her borderline psychic in her intuitiveness, and her words cut like a knife. I would never want to be on the receiving end, so that's where my empathy with Raquel ends. This also makes her able to see into Raquel's Scorpio Venus in the 12th house in a way that others can't. Also, Lala loves talking, thinking, having sex, so go off Scorpio rising queen. Now let's get to Katie. Sweet, misunderstood Katie. Katie this season, unbelievable. The way that just keeping her cool exposed Tom Schwartz in such a way was really impressive. Respect to Katie, you deserve it. Let's talk a little bit about her. So she is a Capricorn sun, which is an earth sign, and Schwartz is a triple Libra. It makes total sense. That's not really a great combination. So Capricorn and Libra is not ideal, at least in their respective expressions of their signs. Tom is a Libra, very airy, wants to get along. Capricorn is not here for the bullshit. These planets form a square. You could think of them as almost literally squaring off in a boxing ring. And we'll get into that more later, but I just want to get through the cast now. So a triple Libra wants harmony. They can be really flaky, unable to make a decision, and at worst, they sacrifice their integrity to keep the peace. Also, I have noticed, and I love my Libras, I love you, I love you, I love you, but they tend to play the victim. Libras are charming, they're friendly. A friend to all is a friend to none. Tom Schwartz, FYI. So Capricorns are determined, they're selective with their time and their energy. They have no patience for people like Raquel or her bizarre side chats that are motivated by God knows what. Katie tends to want to be home. She's more grounded. This is not unlike Ariana, which also explains why something about her is not an all-night party. It's a daytime, lovely place to get a sandwich and a drink. When we're looking at Katie and Tom Schwartz, beyond their obvious incompatibility, the stars also agree. I wanted to take us back a little bit to the beginning of this series because it really laid the groundwork for what we're seeing now. It is kind of strange, but in the very beginning, the most prominent sign in the cast was Cancer. Jax, Cancer. Stassi, Cancer. Tom, Cancer. Ariana, Cancer. And Lisa is a Virgo, but she has a Cancer moon, which can sort of explain her motherly instinct, her ability to just sort of coddle her broken birds. At the end of the day, she really does feel like a mother to a lot of them. With that said, let's start with Stassi. So Stassi is a Cancer sun, a Scorpio moon, and a Capricorn rising. So the way that she moves in the world seems like an expression of all three signs. She seems to lean into one over another depending on what phase she is in her life. She's really good at harnessing the sign's power to achieve whatever objective is in front of her, whether it's personal or professional. In the early seasons, her intense, at times ruthless, a little crazy Scorpio moon, which is, as we talked about, the way she feels and expresses her emotions, that played out visibly, whether she was freaking out on Jax or hitting Kristen. It was like a lot of unregulated Scorpio emotion. Also, to her credit, when she was faced with liars and deceit, she had this penetrating, almost X-ray vision that fueled her unrelenting need to get to the truth. Once her antenna went up, it's game over. Her Scorpio stinger flies, everybody needs to run. She ends up stinging herself, essentially, which happens. Her Scorpio moon explains her love of all things paranormal, creepy, macabre. as Lisa would say. She got engaged to Beau in a cemetery, and you really cannot get more Scorpio than that. Stassi seemed to really lean into her Cancer sun in the mid-seasons, where she prioritized finding her forever partner. You could tell she was ready to build a nest. That type of water in her chart made her emotional, made her empathetic. It made her able to mature and see things from others' perspectives once she broke free of the lower vibrations of her signs. Now, Beau is a Pisces sun, which is a great match for her emotionally, with water as the dominant element in her inner planets. So they understand each other and their delicate moods. They don't take it personally, and this can be really, really difficult for non-water signs who may not comprehend just how deeply they feel. Stassi's Capricorn rising is evident in her work ethic, her hustle. She's currently on a national tour promoting her projects to support her family, and she's doing it all while very pregnant. When I'm looking at the cast, I see Katie's Capricorn sun and Stassi's Capricorn rising understanding one another on a grounded level, which might explain how their friendship has endured so many surrounding scandals, splits, breakups, and so much so that Katie is Hartford's godmother. Let's talk about Jax. Oh, I hate to say it, I'm sometimes attracted to Jax. Don't judge me. So Jax is Cancer sun and Aquarius moon. This is an interesting combo and can explain Brittany's faith in him as her life partner, whereas the rest of us watched in horror. As a Cancer, he's very connected to his home and his mother. Cancer and the mother are very connected. The moon and Cancer, the moon and the mother, it all works hand in hand. So it was almost as though he was mourning the loss of two parents at the time that his father passed. Obviously horrible, gut-wrenching, and this put him in an extremely vulnerable state where he required a deep, unconditional love that Brittany was able to provide. As I mentioned before, Cancers are sensitive. They've got that tough outer shell, that soft underbelly, and Brittany saw past this tough exterior, almost to an infuriating extent, but I guess they don't owe us any explanation. His Aquarius moon complements Brittany's Aquarius sun. They're first and foremost friends, and Aquarius is a sign of friendship. So they get each other even when others don't. And it also explains why he really does find James funny, even when James is antagonizing him. Pumptinis. Jax understands him on a cosmic level, and he gets a kick out of the way that James expresses himself because he can identify with his outrageousness while not getting offended by it. Now, Brittany is an Aquarius sun and a Virgo moon, and the Virgo moon explains her ability to sort of keep her eye on the prize and her unrelenting, quote, knowing that Jax is the one for her. This happens a lot with Virgos. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but it really seems like Brittany and Jax are a great, solid couple. And we saw a lot of her Virgo moon on display during her detailed wedding planning. Does anybody remember the Beauty and the Beast roses? And I'm assuming that those skills really come in handy now that she's a mom. We love an organized queen. So Sheena is a Taurus sun, Sagittarius moon, and a Capricorn rising. And her big three speak to the fact that she's a hustler, she's a workhorse, but she can also be a little all over the place temperamentally. So I wanted to do a deeper dive into her chart and find other roads of insight into who she is. So Sheena is a Taurus sun, Sagittarius moon, and Capricorn rising. And her big three speak to the fact that she's a hustler, she's a workhorse. You know, we see that she's never not working. She was in Vegas, going back doing her show, and then waitressing at Sir. She really does not skip a beat. So yeah, we can talk all about that, but I would prefer to do a deeper dive into her chart to find other roads of insight because she can be a little all over the place. Something that really stood out in her chart to me is her MC, her midheaven, which is her career in Scorpio. And if you think about it, her success is often a result of some kind of scandal that is in the moment really painful or transformational for her, for others, whether it's Brandy or Mike, Shay. It ultimately stacks her bank account with cash. When we think back to the beginning, the show started literally on her back in the clandestine affair with Eddie Cibrian. And her role in this season, however detrimental at the time, was as an unknowing accomplice who brought the drama to a level that made everyone more money in the end. This is Uber One Hit Calling. the song gets stuck in my head all effing day. Okay, so Sheena's Venus, the way that she experiences and expresses love, is in Aries. And this explains how her relationships, even if they're in her head, went from 0 to 100. She's really quick to fall in love and passionate when she does. And it was really a matter of finding the right person. And despite her many, quote, best friends, she really has managed to land a great guy for her. I'm standing Brock this season. Last season, I thought he was like a totally opportunistic weirdo, but now I really like him. And yeah, so her Mars in Gemini speaks to her ability to communicate ideas, able to communicate her feelings. I mean, we saw her Oscar-worthy performance in the finale. She is really good at getting her point across, and she's really good at podcasting. Her vlogs have ended up being incredibly important to this season and this story. And, like I mentioned, her energy is a bit frenetic and she's airy, but she really knows how to harness it to make money, which is a quality linked to her Taurus sun. Now I want to get into a little bit about what was happening in the sky in general when this scandal broke. If we think back to March 1st, collectively, we were experiencing a switch from Saturn in Aquarius. What Saturn in Aquarius is, just think of the last couple of years, like advances in technology, Zoom essentially, working from home, activated social justice movements, big corporations needing to answer for themselves. Another time that Saturn was in Aquarius was in the early 90s, and that's when the internet launched and Rodney King riots brought the world's attention to the injustices in LA and beyond. Now, Saturn is in Pisces, and this is a place where reality and fantasy blur. And it's more of a feeling, much less regimented, but it still maintains the structure of Saturn. And Saturn is essentially our disciplined daddy that keeps us on course. At the moment, think of it as we're more in tune with our guts than our logic. And vibe-wise, picture your Pisces friends versus your Capricorn friends. We're in Pisces' dreamy realm now, and we need to somehow take control of it. And this is where Ariana's, quote, call it women's intuition, stepped up to the plate and served her in a huge way. A couple of other things that stood out to me as well is that Pluto, which is the planet of secrets, sex, death, wealth, rebirth, was and is still lingering in Ariana's 12th house of secrets, clandestine love affairs, delusion, and fantasy. Metaphorically, this is Ariana purging the trash from her life and opening herself up to a true spiritual awakening, and not necessarily a drug-fueled one. I'm looking at you, Sandy and Rachel. But for better or worse, Ariana was born with Pluto in the 10th house of career, friends, fame, and community, which points to an almost laser focus from the public into her personal life at this time. So, we've all watched her, quote, humiliation, which to me is a glow up. Now she's in the limelight. She's the moment, and she's a huge part of the zeitgeist. She's A-list, as some people have called her. Another transit we've all been experiencing since the winter is Mars in Gemini, up until March 25th, when it entered Cancer. And Mars is the planet of aggression and war. And this falls in Ariana's 4th house, the house of family, chosen family, which also corresponds to Cancer, the sign of both she and Tom. So this means there's chaos, a little bit of trickery that took over their Cancer home life, and we saw that in Scandoval's indiscretions and mercurial moods. He always just seemed to be at war with everybody around him, despite him being the one at fault. The other thing with Cancer is that Cancers can sometimes only see what they want to, and that can be detrimental, and we're witnessing it in real time on both sides. Now, Mars is in Leo, which means we may continue to see a little bit of turmoil in both Ariana and Tom's lives in the limelight and in a public forum, and this totally explains what we witnessed last night on that stage. Oh my God, Tom Sandoval, the effing worst. Sandoval was in what's called his, quote, Mars return, meaning Mars, the planet of aggression, transited through Cancer beginning March 25th and ending May 20th. And this energy put his feet to the fire and made him answer for his wrongdoings, despite obviously wanting to keep them away from the prying eyes of his enemies, aka his friends. We're seeing how he lashes out now. He tells Sheena she means nothing to him, etc. And he seems to be using this energy to dig himself deeper and should probably get a grip on that. Raquel is literally in her Saturn return, as we mentioned. Life is dishing out uncomfortable and sometimes devastating lessons, but it's ultimately for her higher good and will lead to her growth as a person. And this is that Saturn return that we always hear about. Happens like every 28 to 30 years and typically feels like shit in the moment, but will make sense in retrospect. And when it comes to Rachel, for what it's worth, I believe that souls call in these lessons at certain times because it's ultimately needed to grow. Even if it's super uncomfortable, there's only growth and discomfort, and you just have to be open to it. And I truly have no idea how many lifetimes Raquel has been here before, but my guess is 0. All of that said, I believe that the future is bright, especially for Ariana, and Tom is just doubling down on his worst of qualities. So I guess we could watch that from afar if we have to. I'd rather not. Don't go to his shows. No. He's just the worst. But anyway, I hope that's helpful. I know it's been a really crazy 2 months, and it's time for us to move on to a new cultural phenomenon. But it's a fascinating group of people. They're super entertaining. We've been along for the ride, and there's always more to come. So thanks. Thanks for checking this out.